Are live at last. Sorry about that. I've been working on Ruby and I underestimated the time and how quickly it goes. Naturally, that's always what happens. Anyway, Aztec, hello, buddy. Thank you for waiting. I do apologise. You have waited for it to turn on at 8 o'clock. I do apologise for that, but things got kicked down the road. Hopefully, we might have a few more people joining. It's always a case of, oh, we've got 3 people. Brilliant. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. As usual, I'm okay. I'm not too bad. I'm really tired. I've got things going on all over the place as usual, and I'm trying to manage my time quite wisely, especially now. The darkness is creeping in, and that's a problem for YouTubers who tend to work on their cars outside with a smartphone as the camera. That, and you know what smartphones are like. The cameras are much better than what they used to be, but they don't handle the light very well, i.e. extreme darkness or extreme brightness. So I am trying to make the most of the light, put it that way. Um, Hello, sir. That guy from Alpha C to Alpha 5. Hello, sir. I'm not too bad. How are you? I'm really pleased that you could join us. Um, this is now the third live stream on 3 Tuesdays in a row. I don't know how this has happened. I might have committed myself to some sort of Tuesday night live stream event. So I'm quite pleased that I've managed to get myself on a roll. Usually live streams I can only do um, when I have a lot of time when I'm off work. Usually it's not this case, but actually somewhat my work patterns have changed. So Tuesdays have somewhat become a much more convenient date to actually host a live stream. And the theme of the day is nothing in particular. I had a few themes in mind. I'm definitely going to do something on EVs because EVs, they're not doing very well at the moment from what I'm hearing. And then you've got the stuff in the media about 2030 being pushed back to 2035. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? So we've got all that going on. So we're going to have a political live stream about that at some point. But we're going to just choose something very much focused on the love of cars, and that is my love of classic cars. And what I've experienced with Ruby ever since I bought her was that feeling of owning a classic. The smells, the sensual sort of touch of the fabric materials inside the car, everything, the noises, everything about her. So I've got that, and that's been a constant reminder of the days that I enjoyed with my Road P6, and it's been delightful, utterly delightful, and it's kind of brought back a lot of sort of nostalgia from my young days. Definitely my young days, because the love of classic cars has to come from somewhere. You don't just wake up and just think, you know what, I like classic cars. It's just not a thing. There are plenty of people who enjoy classic cars, who go to classic car shows, the NEC Classic Motor Show and the Practical Classic shows. They're full of people and young people. But there is a difference between enjoying classic cars and looking at them and going to a show and actually owning one, because owning one is a very dangerous game. It can be the best thing and the worst thing, and you got to try things in life. You only get one life. So that's me, right in at the deep end. Doing just fine. Good. I'm glad. I'm very glad that's okay. Good, good, good. Adam, hello, sir. Good evening as usual. I am. I'm much better than I was last week, but it is the winter, so naturally there are things flying around all over the place. But I touch wood, I'm good. And while I'm good, and that I can actually, well, I don't feel as if I need to go to bed every 2 seconds like 6, 7 days ago now. Um, yeah, I take advantage by working on the cars. We are going to get some rain. We've got the darkness and the rain creeping in, so my ability to work on Ruby will be diminished. So there might be some more very nice live streams coming up. I might do one tomorrow. You never know. I might have an hour or two where I just might ramble on about another subject. Got to be careful. Might run out of stuff to talk about. there's plenty of stuff to talk about. Aztec, I'm so sorry that I've done this half an hour later. I know that you have a cut-off point, and I understand that. Do not make yourself tired for school, please. Yeah, to be honest, I'm going to do something later in the week probably because it's mostly going to be raining. Saturday's the no. I'll be working on Ruby on Saturday, yet again. I need to get the Mark 1 Focus out the garage because I haven't driven her at all since the episode that I did about laying a car up. And one of the things I said was drive it forwards and backwards. Yeah, not far me on the voice there. Got caught in everything else. So I've got to put the battery on it and drive it forwards and backwards and make sure that she's fine. I've no doubt she will be. But I always do my checks, always pull the plug on the oil and the dipstick, always check the oil, guys. Just don't assume there's oil in there. Assume that it's pissed oil over the garage floor because they can do. Well, if you leave cars for that long. As I said, didn't Germany pull out of the EV or renewable sources? They did something, but I need to look into that to answer that question. Germany have definitely pulled out of a few things recently, and I think people are starting to see the farce of trying to go at lightning speed. And I'm not being funny, it doesn't matter what we do in Europe, it's what China's doing. And China at the moment is having its industrial revolution. No. Anyway, I'll try and stay or postpone it. Yeah, they've done something. Anyway, have you seen Tom's video on saving the rover and MG prototypes? I have indeed. I'm very, very pleased about that. I was very vocal on the groups that, quite frankly, MG have demonstrated through the whole process. Why the hell they're there, I don't know. But they have demonstrated one thing. MG does not care about its heritage. They don't care a damn. I would not envisage anybody or recommend anybody buying an MG car. They are not MGs. They just wear the badge that so many great cars wore before it and made by great people in great factories. And quite frankly, it doesn't. The cars they have do not deserve the badge, and I don't think you should buy them because the Chinese don't care a damn about the heritage and about what the MG badge actually means, because they wouldn't have prototypes outside in the car park down at Longbridge if they cared. I don't know where these prototypes have come from. Have they been pulled from the wreckage of a building that has now come down? Because there's still parts of Longbridge, strangely, that are untouched. It's unbelievable. That's how big a site it was. But I think most of it will be gone in a few years. But I can't believe that. It's absolutely disgusting. So I'm glad that that's come to fore. It's been on the forums for years. They've been known about to exist, and the fact they're out there is disgusting. So I'm glad that something has been done and MG's hand has had to be turned. It's really bad publicity for them, and the only reason they're doing it is they're scared about publicity and the fact that people might not buy their cars because this is really looking too bad. It is bad. EVs are not all they're cracked up to be. That's what I say. Oh, yes, absolutely. They're certainly not the best compared to combustion engines. I own a 77 Trans Am. It's a handful of times, but I wouldn't trade her for the world. Oh my goodness, what a beast. That is a beast. I'm not surprised. They're very pretty hardy. I think I got into cars and classic cars from Top Gear under Clarkson, Hammond and May, like a lot of people. That's rather interesting, that is, because Top Gear back then was just pure entertainment. Brilliant, because I think we all grew up watching the three of them. And I think it's just important to recognise the contribution that they've made to just raising awareness of certain cars. I think personally, if you're not massively into classics, but you're into cars, and you watch them, and particularly some of the episodes they did, I think the one that sticks in their mind is when they bought 3 BL cars. So you had a Dolomite Sprint. Of course, Hammond buys a Doddy Sprint. James buys a Princess Automatic 2200 HLS, which I really liked because my granddad had one. And what did Clarkson buy? Oh, he had to buy a Rover SD1, didn't he, with a V8? Had to buy it. Unbelievable. Since that, he did once, very quite a memorable moment where Clarkson for Top Gear did a review on the SD1 and just pulled the door off. Its hinges didn't, it blew off. Bit dramatic there, but I think we remember that. But I remember that episode, and I look back at it and think, God, if that had happened today, the owners' clubs would be absolutely at them. I mean, to be fair, how the Marsh Marina clubs absolutely coped. They actually lost quite a few cars due to all the jokes about Marsh Marinas. How many of them have had a piano fall on them, I don't know, but it was quite comical at the time. But sad because marinas were rare back then, and they're even rarer today. So I don't think most people who are into marinas found that funny. But generically, it's an entertainment show, isn't it? And those things stick in your mind quite a bit, don't they? Uh, As I say, I find it that people usually get into cars via the media or their dads, to be honest. That's an interesting comment, Aztec. That's very interesting. It usually is family. For me, it's not my dad because my dad doesn't drive, but my granddad did. Well, did. Rest his soul. I'd say my granddad had a Princess. He had all the BLs. So we had, didn't have an Allegro. He had a Marina. He had a Princess. Unfortunately, the Princess, it was the one car that he had to adapt the garage because most garages, I mean, my granddad's house was a 1920s semi-detached house and it had a garage, but the garage wasn't quite, well, it was just about wide enough. God knows how granddad used to get out. I don't know how he did it to this day. Length and width, because the Princess is quite a big car. Even for back in the day, that would have been a big car. And what my granddad had to do was put the hinges of the garage doors on the outside as opposed to the inside so they hinge out because then he could get the Princess into the garage. Unbelievable. And I thought it was tight with an Austin Maestro, which he bought after the Princess. And that's the car of my childhood. And you will be seeing one on the channel very soon. Possibly not owned, but definitely it's going to be featured in some respects. So it is parents, family mainly that you get you into them, but you need to have some spark, and there has to be some enthusiasm to make you want to do that. For me, the enthusiasm comes from literally, Grandad, what's that under the bonnet of a Maestro? And I'm pretty damn certain my Grandad's Maestro was a 1.6 S series. So the S series being a development of the short-lived R series, which was underdeveloped, which was a development of the E series, which is a decent engine, from what I'm being told. Aztec, me and my dad were speaking today. My dad had to go on a school triple induction at Rover, and people there always used to say it was working man's Rolls Royce with all the nice bits and bobs in there. It is, yeah, yeah. Every Rover that I have driven feels like it is a roller, but it's not. It doesn't have the price tag. Um, that's literally the phrase. I still think even my Rover 45, I drive it, I feel like, yeah, I feel that this has got sort of a Rolls Royce waft when it moves off down the motor, especially with the 1.8 CVT. I do get a feeling a little bit less quality, obviously, and less nice touches, but still has that wafting Rolls sort of appeal. And that's what a Rover is really, down and hard. So you've hit it on the nail, Aztec, about that one. That guy, if you want to see a video, I'll provide it. Please do, please do. Please, I'd love to see it. Send me an email, please. Adam, another Top Gear episode that sticks out in my mind is the British Sports Cars one with the Jensen Healey, the TVR S2, and the Lotus Esprit. Very good, and a very, very good episode again. Quite a sad one. They visited quite a few factories, including the Jensen factory in West Brom. I believe that's been demolished now. I don't believe it's in existence. I could be wrong about that one. But yeah, there are a lot of hidden gems in that episode, and quite good actually. It was a really good episode. They never really worked as such, and the one for me is the TVR2. But I've never been into those sort of high end sports cars. They're very high end sports cars. They are. When they were cheap. The Alabama road trip was my fave, but I prefer the 90s Top Gear actual car reviews rather than the jokey stunt show. It became That's rather interesting because the jokey stunt show that it became, actually, I found my generation grew up watching that, and I found it really hilarious. Whereas the Top Gear before felt like a newsreel show. You have to have one or the other. You can't have both. I don't think. I think they tried it out with the Grand Tour, and I think it had some success. But it's still, it's one of the few shows. Whenever they do a special, it's one of the few shows you know how predictable they're going to be now, but they still come up with so many jokes, and I'm there in stitches. It's one of the few things on TV that I'll be in stitches on. Mind you, Clarkson's Farm is good. I tell you what, if you're a fan of Jeremy Clarkson, please watch Clarkson's Farm. Why on earth would a petrol head watch about a farm? Jeremy Clarkson makes anything turn to gold. Love him or hate him. I've actually met Jeremy, thankfully. I have met Jeremy. I have been down to that farm, and I had to have a photo. I'll have to share that photo naturally. But I dropped in there just, well, he meets car enthusiasts all the time, but, nice to have a handshake and a signature on a very nice book, of which is Jeremy Clarkson. Paul? Hello, Paul. Good evening, buddy. Glad to have you here. Evening. I'm not sure how I got into cars, as my dad wasn't really into them, despite him having two Mark 1 Fiestas. A Talbot Horizon. Ooh, blimey. I'm not being fair on Talbots, but I don't think much of them. And a Volvo 345. So that was was that the DAF version 345? I think so. I presume I'm right with that one. That's an interesting combination of cars. So your dad wasn't really into them, but you obviously got that fascination from maybe those cars. To be fair, is it fair to say that the young people of today, despite the fact it's quite difficult to get into cars, do you not think the cars today don't really have that kind of appeal to them now? They're just ecological boxes with lots of different plastic trim on wheels with no real character. There's nothing defining about them. They are utterly refined. They are as refined as the motor car can ever be. They are not motor cars. They are automotive masterpieces in some respects, because they are as perfect as you can make them. Reliably ish? No, not really. When they get old, they get less reliable, but there is that appeal that they just don't go wrong towards the start, and then things start to fall apart. But there's no character in that. There's no smells. The plastics are not nice to touch, not as nice to touch as they used to be. It's just there's less defining features about them personally. They all look the same. They all have I know they aren't all the same, but they do look the same, and that's the problem. I think if you did a car review on a modern car, you could see a million differences from one car to another. But when you stand back 10 foot, they look the same. That's the problem. And then with classic cars, it's different. They are completely different in many respects. And you stand 10 foot back and they look completely different. That's the problem. That's why classic cars to me have that defining feature that means it's probably much more of an attractive thing to get into cars, maybe an easier thing back in the day, because there was just a lot more lovable cars back then. I don't know what cars these days people love. People just seem to think, nah, do you know what? I just need a reliable box that looks as new as possible, so I can press all my neighbours and let them know that I've got a good job. That is what it is, keeping up with the Joneses. I'm glad I'm not in that camp. So that's my take on that. So interesting. It's not always There doesn't have to be a family connection. It's there. Maybe, I don't know. It's just something, Paul, that sparked that enthusiasm on a particular day, or when did you become aware that actually I quite like these cars? I also think, and judging because my background is from education, I also think classic cars for me is a sensory experience. And I know that people relate to that when it comes to uh, children with special needs, and I work with children with special needs. It is a sensory experience. You know, you've got all the smells, you've got all the touch. I mean, the door cards on Ruby have got a lovely material on them, and it's moquette. It's like bus moquette. It's exactly the material you'd have found on 80s, 90s buses, and it's thick, hard wearing in a nice pattern. They've all got different patterns depending on what trim. But I've got the Aztec trim, and no pun intended, Aztec, but it's moquette. It's beautiful to touch. But you put your arm on the door, it's so nice on your arm. And then you've got the sounds. You've got proper relay sounds, like tick tick relay sounds. Perfect, utterly perfect. I do apologise if this is slightly blurred. I'm not quite sure why we're getting a blurred screen. I don't know if you are experiencing a blurred screen, because I'm looking at this and this is clear, that's blurred, so I think there's a bit of a Wi-Fi issue. So it's a total sensory experience. The vibration, noise, everything about it. I have started reading a book about F1 cars. It talks about how they were made and all the engineering behind it. It's by Adrian Newey, and would 100% recommend it to anyone who wants a book to pass the time. I'll have a look at that. I know quite a bit of F1 cars. Then a bit more overly engineered this year, aren't they, compared to other years? Actually, the engines are much smaller as usual. They seem to be getting tinier and tinier, the engines. But it just goes to show how far engineering can go compared to the big old monsters that lived in F1 cars 20, 30 years ago even. The most memorable year for me was when Jenson Button won in 2010. Brilliant. I was really pleased for him because for years he was in the doldrums, coming like low down, and he was a far better driver. He just needed a really good car, and he got a really good car that year. I'm not surprised. Shame for Lewis though. Unfortunately, Lewis was cheated out of that last one, wasn't he? I could go on all day about how much that was rigged, but we all know it. Paul, I wish I'd learnt more about mechanics when I was younger though. Some learn young, some learn when they're older. It doesn't really matter. Late, but better than never. Aztec off topic, but my brother's recently bought an X-Reg ZTEC S in red. Good, as a run around, and it's such a blast to be in, although it isn't the quickest. That's okay. Mark 4 or Mark 5. Could be a Mark 5 on the next plate. Does it have the sad face or the it's a face, the Mark 5 is a facelifted example. I don't know why they called it a Mark 5. Just I don't understand that. If I tell you what, if a Mark 5 Fiesta is not a facelift of a Mark 4, then the Mark 3.5 Fiesta is actually a Mark 4, because actually this is the thing. The difference between Ruby being an early Mark 3 and a late 3.5 Fiesta is like night and day. I'm afraid you could have had the 3.5 as a Mark 4 Fiesta. It's that different. But a Mark 4 and a Mark 5 Fiesta, there's nothing, very little in it. Chief or Charlie and Caleb make me laugh a lot. Oh yes, of course. They've done well for themselves, haven't they? It's interesting seeing what sort of life that people lead. Caleb's led a very sheltered life before all this, I gather. But what a friend to have in Jeremy Clarkson. Paul, I agree regarding new cars. I used to get excited about new car releases. I'd go up to the Ford garage and get the brochures. They just look featureless. Can't even get brochures now. It's all online. You can't physically get a brochure. I love the brochures. It's part of the experience. You go home with a stack full of stuff, and people keep them, and people have kept them over many, many years. Um, Adam, today's cars don't have the character they used to, plus a lot of them look similar to each other. They have less differences, which give them less character. Yeah, completely. Like I say, they probably have a lot of differences, but they don't look like they've got many differences when you look at a distance from them. But you know, you have to go into the play bar, hover your mouse at the bottom, then click on the gear icon that. I think it's automatically selected the quality. Thank you very much for telling me, Aztec. I completely forgot that I was able to do that. In fact, I thought I couldn't do it for a second because that setting didn't come on. Thank you very much for telling me that. I don't know why I didn't know that. It is now a much crisper image. For some reason, my Wi-Fi is a bit down. I think it's automatically gone down. 144 it was. No, it's 720 now. I'd like to do these streams in HD, but the truth is I think the Wi-Fi can't handle it. But that's a good screen. It's a Mark 4. So it would have been a Mark 4 crossover to a Mark 5 then. So that's a late Mark 4. I'll tell you what I have seen the other day, and I think it's going to be a very rare car. I've seen a dealer registered very, because most of them were very early Mark 4 Fiesta on an N-Reg, and it's a bit tired. It's on Facebook Marketplace for a very low sum. It needs a bit of metal in the usual because it's got a bit scabby, but it's not bad. And it's got the DMC registration plate, which is a Dagenham registration plate. Only the early cars have the, so it is a genuine early, very early N-Reg Fiesta Mark 4. I think they're going to be worth something if they're in really good condition, but it takes someone to understand that, just like early Mark 3 F-Regs. Even if I had the money, which I do not, I would not buy a brand new Ford. They're all lifeless and so boring. I think the only one I'd have is a Mark 4 Focus, but even that's a bit... I think with every single generation of the Focus, they've become so dulled down, it's untrue. I think the Mark 3 Focus is a fine car, but it's nothing... It's not, I don't think it's quite as exciting as a Mark 2. And a Mark 2 seems to be a little bit more blander version of a Mark 1. And a Mark 4 just... What is a Mark 4? I think the Mark 4 Focus looks vaguely like a Focus, but it really doesn't feel like one in look and touch. It's... What is this? That's why I feel that the end of the Focus and the Fiesta has come at the right time, unfortunately, because of the way Ford have treated those two marquees in their own right. They've just allowed it to wither away to the point where might as well have something a bit different. But there are talks of the Fiesta coming back, and I've got to fit. This is the problem now. Manufacturers are caught in this problem, this 2030 thing. Now it's 2035. And all these manufacturers are going, we should have kept the Fiesta going for a couple more years because they've put it back again. It's not going to happen. Trust me, when we get close to 2030, that 2035 will become 2040 and we'll be back where we started in 2016, because it was 2016 where they announced it was 2040 and I said it wasn't going to happen. And then they moved it forwards and it's like, you're kidding. And then 2030, you're joking. And then they've put it back and they'll put it back again. And I've no doubt they'll put it back again. Great, fantastic. I'll be an old man by the time this is settled because they keep kicking the can down the road. And let's face it, they can't even build a train track called HS2. Anyway, aside from the point, this is about the love of classic cars. What has got you into classics? Have you had a classic? Are you thinking of getting a classic? I'd recommend a Mark III Fiesta if you want to deal with rust. I've just done a video on Mark III Fiesta adverts. And my feeling from that video is very much of one thing: rust, rust, rust. Every single one of them. And Ruby's not an exceptional one. She needs a bit of tidying up in a few places, but is probably one of the best ones from what I've seen. So I'm very pleased looking at those adverts. Made me feel a lot better. Sometimes you can be tunnel visioned with your example, and you need to see what's out there. And what I see out there isn't a great deal, unfortunately. People don't treat them very well, which is a shame. Nippy Dave, hello, welcome to the live stream. I'm so sorry I couldn't get to you. I'm not forgotten you. Hello, how are you? Nice to join the live stream. Thank you for the likes on the screen, guys. I appreciate it. This is going to be kind of a shorter live stream, probably about another hour. I want to keep to an hour and a half on this one, mainly because I'm tired. But I hope to have a decent time with you guys before. Strangely enough, I've actually gone into a live stream in the past feeling shattered, and I think I can't do this. And then by the end of the live stream, I feel awake. So you guys keep me up, trust me. Adam, I also like brochures. I've recently managed to find a 2004 brochure for my Mark 1 Focus similar to 2002 one, but it has the info on the 1.8 LPG, and it has some of the different pictures. Oh, that's interesting. You have to send me a picture of that one. I'm not sure which brochure that would be if they've got details of the LPG. That's interesting. I'll tell you what, if anybody's got one with that factory fitted LPG system, there's only about 25 of them. I'm not joking. Aztec, even if I'm losing the plot here. Alex, cheers Andrew. Found out a co-worker daily drives a Mark III Fiesta. Just had a wheel being replaced. Whoa, bloody neck. Fingers crossed that Ruby doesn't have need a wheel bearing replaced. That's superb. That's really nice to know. And that's something that I've covered as well. So many Mark III Fiestas are still daily driven. It goes to show that they're just reliable, very reliable. I think it would be a later one though, because the carburetor models, as much as I don't want to think they're less reliable, but people don't know how to tune them or work them properly. So therefore people just tend to want the CFI models, the single point injection model, which is, you know, a bit more computer controlled with its own ECU. There's less to go wrong. There's a bit more in the way of sensors. Adam also found a 2014 brochure for my Mark 7 Fiesta on eBay, which I'm glad I found. Ooh, that's a nice one actually. Facebook Marketplace is very strange. I saw a fire truck on there for 4,000. Yes, you can. Please send me the listing. I'd like to see that one. Facebook Marketplace is a place where you go and you end up looking at stuff that you never thought you'd be looking at, or ended up buying something you never thought you'd buy. It's that bad. Mark 3.5 Focus into the Mark 4 MO. They lost that way a little bit. That guy from Ceta Alpha, I don't like the EcoBoost engines. I had to go in an EcoBoost Mustang. It was horrible. No, I just don't know why you'd buy an Eco. I just don't know why you'd buy a Mustang without that V8. It's not a Mustang, is it? It's just an EcoBoost. It's not very good. After the Mark IV is gone, Ford's car range looks utterly crap and dreary. No one's complaining and arguing with that statement. I mean, I was behind a Ford Puma the other day. It's rubbish. Anyway, I'd rather not see a new Fiesta than this Fiesta name slapped on the back of an SUV. That would be even worse. Hello, Maria. How are you? I've seen a few vintage Rovers on Facebook Marketplace, which is interesting to see that they're still on the road. Absolutely. It is really nice to see, and they will definitely be modern. They are modern classics. I wanted to ask a question actually to my audience. What defines, in your opinion, I want every one of you to answer this question, what defines a classic car from a modern classic? I've still got the Mark 1 Focus RS brochure, loads of interesting stuff about WRC influences. There are influences, but the Mark 1 Focus RS has nothing to do with the WRC, I can tell you. There's a completely different story there. Have you read the story on that, Paul? Because that is it's technically not even Ford's own car. Ford didn't want anything to do with it. They thought that it wasn't going to work, and wow, the team who went away and solved it did, but it wasn't Ford's team. Agreed. I was like, Paul, hello, buddy. Nice for you to join us, Paul. The one I miss is the 1800 Land Crab, like driving along in your favourite armchair. The Land Crabs. Do you know something? They're very understated cars. I've had a journey in a Austin 3 litre once, and I was amazed. It's hydroelastic. Uh, I was amazed. It's like a floating carpet, and the seats are just so comfy. It's untrue. And an 1800 was the smaller version, the little brother, I would say. And yeah, they really are. They are nice cars. I've seen a couple. Not often do you see them at shows. They're quite rare, and I think they're under the radar because I don't think people like their appearance, and they're one of those dreary classics. Some people call them dreary, but I don't think they're dreary. They're very nice. They are definitely an armchair. I would say an Austin Princess or Austin Ambassador. I think the comfiest seats I've sat in a car is an Austin Ambassador. I've sat in an Austin Ambassador, and the seats are something else. What the hell? Of all the cars to have the comfiest seats, why not other cars? Why didn't they transfer them seats to other cars? They were just amazing. I absolutely love the RS Mark 1 and the WRC Heritage. I wouldn't say there's much heritage in a Mark 1 RS, believe you me, there's no connection. Very little connection. I think you've previously mentioned in your other vids, but the brochures are great sources of info for your old cars, such as the fabric names, the correct accessories. Yes, it is the perfect timestamp of what that car would have had from the factory. It's utterly true. For both my cars, actually. Alex, I love classics, but I'm very much a 2000s car person due to growing up in the noughties. Yeah, same here. Grew up in I'm a late 90s noughties kid. I wouldn't say I'm a 90s kid thoroughly because I was young, but early noughties, around the time of my Mark 1 Focus. I was 5 years old when the Focus came out, well, 5 going on 6. So definitely, it's what you grew up with as well. That's the ultimate factor as well. It's your perception. Can you believe that a Mark III Fiesta is 34 years old? When I was little, they were disposable super minis that you could buy for less than 50 quid. I think a Mark III Fiesta and certain cars of the 90s make people feel old. Really old. Mark 1 Focuses have a habit of springing that surprise of age because people just see them and think, pretty modern still. They're 20 years old, most of them. I think Ford's best era is 80s to the 2003. Why 2003? Interesting question before you go, Aztec. I know that you, yeah, interesting one, that. In Portugal, the V8 is taxed so heavily that most just get the Eco Boom. Yeah, I can understand that. We're not taxed as heavily. You are taxed in this country for an engine over a certain capacity, but you're also taxed more for if you own a car over £40,000. I think it is if the actual price is over £40,000, you are taxed a massive lump sum by the UK. Which doesn't put people off, because if you've got that amount of money to spend on that sort of car, then you will be able to pay the tax. Mostly. A classic car is analog technology, a tape player, a push-button radio, and no onboard computers. Modern classics are pre-2005 for me. Why is there a cut-off for 2005? Is it because the cars beyond that are not young enough to be, old enough to be a modern classic? Or do they have certain technology that makes them just, they can't be a modern classic because they are just X, Y, and Z? What's the reason in there? I'm just curious because it is an age-old question and you get different answers from different people. And insurance companies go by the 20-year rule of classics, which makes my Focus a classic, which is very interesting. Festival of the Unexceptional. You cannot, and I only just realised this myself because I am looking to put Ruby possibly into the concourse. However, it is an exceptional car. I probably won't get in. But if I can argue the toss that the gearbox is quite infamous for its reliability, it might get in. They insist that the car has to be from 1998 at least. So they think that it has to be 25 years old, essentially to be a classic. Puma Guy, hello buddy. Glad of you to join us. I have a modern classic being the original Puma, hence the name Puma Guy. One of the best performing coupes out there, won numerous awards. The new Puma doesn't deserve the title. I think it's an insult. It's a total insult putting the Puma name on that blob, because that's not the car that inspired a lot of people to buy one. I mean, the adverts, you know, who remembers the extremely expensive advert that they produced with a hologram Steve McQueen, but it felt like it was the right car. And that the thing is, the best thing about it is that they did a lot of research for that advert. They contacted Steve McQueen's family, and they fully approved. And it's the kind of car that Steve McQueen would have possibly driven, and the way he would have driven it. So because Steve McQueen was he's a car person, so yeah, I think that was such good marketing by Ford, and the Puma is such a modern classic. It's untrue, and I can't believe that they're still as cheap as what they are. And I know Jason's probably watching this. If you are watching, Jason, you got a gem. You got such a gem. You need to protect that Puma. Maria, vintage to me is anything older than 20. Oh, you use the word vintage. Now that's a different category in itself. It's interesting how people use the word vintage instead of classic, because the word vintage for me is pre-1960s. I tend to think of classics as 60s. Actually, no, I'll rephrase that. Vintage pre-50s. Classics 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Modern classics 90s and some noughties. Probably up to midway. I would say there is a cut-off point at the moment, but I'm not quite sure what year I'd like to put. I will tell you my opinion between modern and classic in a second. And the reason why Project Ruby is a classic and not a modern classic. Alex, I love the early days of tech and experimental materials and tactile feedback. Lots of backlit buttons with reassuring clicks, dot matrix displays, LED analog gauges, real aluminium trim. It's true, not fake stuff or chrome stuff or just a bit of tape over a bit of plastic. Yeah, analog gauges, row P6, strip speedo, love them, absolutely love it. All the unrefinement, as I should say, and inaccuracy, but we all love them for that slight inaccuracy. It's just the way they absolutely work, and some engineer thought that's going to work really well. And to be fair, most tech like that does, and it lasts. Would you prefer something? I mean, this is thing with engine or speedos, for example, or just little things in the interior. Would you prefer something that's slightly inaccurate but will last a bit more of a lifetime than something that's accurate and lasts about 10 years? I know which one I prefer. Limpy Dave, how old are you? Oh, Aztecs at school, my friend. I need to meet you soon, Aztec, again, if you can go somewhere with your dad. I mean, I'm trying to link up somehow. Send me an email if you want. I have to bump heads at some point. The Maestro was launched 4 months after I was born. I always had a soft spot for them. Nice. 1983. Very nice. On a Y-Reg, if you were looking to get one on a Y-Reg. Yeah, car from my childhood. Maestro, when they were cheap. And I spent a lot of time when I went to Gaydon for the BL show with Beatrix. I think you were quite a few people were marked how many Maestros there were. The Maestro Owners Club did an amazing job. They gathered about 40 Maestros, and there's only about 200 of them left. The one that I am aware about that might be on the channel isn't part of that 40. It's an undiscovered one that's been discovered. So I've just spent about off camera. I actually did the filming, went round, said my goodbyes. That's the end of the video, and I went straight back over there, and I spent about half an hour just staring at them. I spoke to a couple of owners, but mostly I got perplexed by them. I really like them. I really like Maestros. Very good car, despite what people say. Very good car. Strangely, I know someone who's taken a Maestro to a local club meet at a car park. It's one of those themed pubs that I go to one. And he actually took 2 cars. One car one day, which was a Vauxhall Corsa B, 1994. 1993, actually, a very early K plate Vauxhall Corsa B, absolutely mint condition. Had a couple of people look around it, but nothing more than that. The week later, we took the Maestro, and you couldn't get people away from the car. It was only 3 years older, and you can't get people away from it. That's, for me, is the nostalgia spot of Maestros. It's the car that people fondly remember, even if they had some bad experiences of one. That says a lot about that car. The best Focus came out in 2002 and stopped production in 2003. What's your opinion based on? Because Focuses from 2002, 2003 are the worst Focuses that I've seen for rust consistently. My car is no different. I think the only reason why I stopped it getting bad is my due diligence over many, many years, going back way before YouTube. If it wasn't for me, the car would have been scrapped. I really do think the 2002, 2003 models, for some reason, are the worst examples for rust. And I can't put my finger on it, but there was something going on that wasn't as good in those 2 years. So, unfortunately, I can't agree with you there. But on paper, possibly. I don't know if that's possibly what you meant. It's over 10 minutes. I've probably asked that already. Sorry, Aztec. Alex, we're taxed at the moment on sales based on CO2 displacement plus 23% of the car price. That's a lot. 23%. That is a lot. Not even the UK does that. That makes it very difficult. Plus yearly based on the displacement and CO2. We're taxed on the CO2 in the UK. I see in Portugal that's a bit more harsh. That is because in the UK it's 2 systems. Post 2001 is based on the CO2 emissions. Pre 2001 is based on engine size. Ruby is based on engine size. So if it's 1.5 or under, it's one price. If it's over 1.5, it's another price. That's it. Luckily, Ruby has the biggest capacity engine, being a 1.4, without being in the higher tax bracket. So I'm very pleased about that, because that's quite a bit of difference. In fact, the difference is almost double. So basically, if you're going to have a classic if you're going to have a car that isn't 40 years old, because if it's 40 years old in the UK, you can apply for it to be tax exempt. But it's not. It's still older than 2001. So between 1983 and 2001, which is 18 years. It's closing though. I don't know what's going to happen in 18 years when that gap has closed. I think they'd have changed the tax system by then anyway. But when that gap closes, effectively every car in 18 years, 2001 cars will be exempt from tax. Well, where's your tax money going to go then? Interesting one, that. So the gap is closing. So there's only 18 years of car that are taxed on their engine size. Ruby has got another 6 years to go until she is exempt from tax. That will help a little bit, but I don't know. I don't think I'll be the owner by then. Just saying. I think it's a bit far off for me. Modern cars are now devoid of any style by and large. All seem like a jacked up, boring SUV, clones of each other. A crying shame. It is true, if you put them all in a line, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference from a distance. It just nothing to them. I've got a new thing for this channel. We don't talk about SUVs on this channel. I thought I'd add that in there. I might be copywriting another YouTuber by doing this, but we don't talk about SUVs on this channel because it makes me feel physically sick. Excuse me, I need a glass of water. It's making me feel sick. They lack solve other cars. Let's hit some likes to the stream. Oh, thank you so much, Puma Guy. Yes, please hit some likes on the screen, guys. Thank you very much for doing that shout out, Puma Guy. And yeah, please, we got 11 people. Put some thumbs up. We've got 8 people that have liked this. It really motivates me to get behind the camera again. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm trying to keep it on topic. But yes, what defines a classic car from a modern classic? That is my question. What's the cutoff point? Is it a year or is it a technology base? I'll give my opinion now, and you can disagree if you want. Ruby is a classic and not a modern classic. Mark III Fiestas are generally seen as modern classics. I'd label that at Mark 3.5s, but even Mark IIIs are seen as modern classics, and that's wrong. They are classics if they have a couple of things, and that is if you have a car with a carburetor, if you have a car with a distributor, if it doesn't have a form of catalytic converter, if it doesn't have an ECU. I wouldn't necessarily say about the cat, but definitely an ECU, no ECU, a dizzy, and a carburetor, and a mechanical fuel pump. Maybe some cars had electric fuel pumps back in the day. But if you've got a few of these things, that's the defining feature that makes that car a classic car. I am not saying that injection cars from the 70s and 80s, because we know a lot of cars had fuel injection, are not classics. They have other features that make them classics. But the defining line between that sort of mid-80s to mid-90s time, where the difference between classic and modern classic is a bit of a blur and people have got different interpretations. If you want to solve the issue, carburetor, distributor, no ECU, and that's a classic. Whereas if you have an ECU, injection, and a cat, there, and a distributorless coil pack ignition system, no dizzy, that makes it a modern classic, because that's the sort of technology that has been around since until now. It's still around today, but in a much more sophisticated form. It was just the beginning in the 90s. So if you've got a Mark III Fiesta or Mark 3.5 Fiesta with fuel injection, a CFI, EFI, you could class that as a modern classic. That's the defining line for me on that one. So a Mark IV Fiesta is a modern classic. It will not be a classic because it's just got too many modern touches to it underneath the skin. Fun fact, people find out my W203 as real aluminium inside because they find the dings in trim pieces. Oh, yes. Well, it wouldn't scratch. Obviously, with the plastic, it would just scratch, and, you know, the UV rays will get to it and tarnish it a bit, but the aluminium won't tarnish. It will just get dings, and you will probably see minor scratches on it, but it's actually scratches you can buff out. If you've got scratches on the fake stuff, you can't buff that out because it's not aluminium. No point getting the metal polish out. Paul, £300 tax for my XR2i. That's a painful month when it comes around. Oh dear. That's a lot, that is. Because that's the 1.6. Jesus Christ, that's a lot. Well, at least you've got the EFI to back it up. But that's the thing. You've got electronic fuel injection. Is your car a modern classic? No, it's a classic. It's a classic. There's no one who would say that that's a modern classic. That's a classic. What makes it a classic? There's just too many defining features for me. But people might argue that there is more of a cut-off there. So you pay in 1 month, I gather, just one shot. Because I don't pay in one go, I pay on direct debit. It's too expensive to do that. And plus, I don't have my cars on the road all the time. It's like, half my cars are off the road. So if I can get away with sawing a car for a whole month and just saying, well, that's not going on the road, the taxman's not getting that. It's true. Adam, in terms of the tax, the 1.6 manual 1.1 Focus is $240 a year. That's correct. In comparison, my Fiesta 1.25 manual is £35 a year. Absolutely ridiculous. And it's the same engine. Unbelievable. My third car, the Fiat Coupe 2 litre turbo, is $325. That's expensive because it's judged on that engine size again. They're very nice cars, Fiat Coupes. You do not see many of them. You need to keep that Adam at all costs, really, honestly. Alex, here, if anybody doesn't know what here means, Alex is from Portugal. Pre-2007 cars pay less tax, but government wants to increase it. The W203 goes from 67 to 218 euros eventually. That's a jump. That's a really big jump. I tell you what, if that happened here, there'd be an uproar. It has to be incremental. It has to be incremental. It can't be that big. Oof. No. Oh, we've got to the end of the stream. Come in with your comments. Anybody's got anything else to say about classics or anything in general, because this is a general talk about classics, but anything interesting. But the tax is a big problem. The other thing about classics is obviously they're not just exempt from tax, they're MOT exempt as well. I don't think that's very good. The whole logic and basis of the MOT exemption, which is 40 years again, is that garages don't have the experience to service to MOT these cars and know what they're looking at in the first place. And I think that's correct to a certain point, but I don't think it is, because they're just cars at the end of the day. I think the MOT is quite stringent, and most garages, if you put your classic in, and a lot of classics still go in for their MOTs because their owners insist on having a good bit of paperwork. And believe you me, if you haven't got paperwork if you had an accident, your insurance company is not going to pay out if they say, oh, I don't have to take it in for the MOT because it's exempt. Well, what sort of proof that you've kept the car in working, safe condition? So you're still going to have to do it eventually. And then it relies on the fact that owners of 40-year-old cars actually look after the cars. You see, owners of 40-year-old cars want to look after their cars naturally because they're classics, but they lack the skills to do so. And when you're talking about MOT exemption, you are letting these people have a bit of a, well, I don't need to get this done because my car's MOT exempt. Whereas if it wasn't MOT exempt, they know I'm going to have to get that done because it won't pass the MOT. And then things get left. And then these cars are driving on the roads with 25-year-old plus tyres. How's that safe? So there is a flip side to that. It's really bad. I think they need to scrap the exemption personally. It's bad. Puma, as an owner of an older car, perhaps a classic, fair point. Is there anything mechanical-wise you would not attempt? Is there anything mechanical-wise you would not attempt to work or fix on? perhaps trusting a garage to take care of those tasks. It depends on the car, to be honest. It depends on your skill set. There's nothing much that I can't do at home. And judging on what I see from garages, I tend to think, do you know what, I can do this myself. And that's the basis of what everything I do. I'm going to get some challenges. I've got 3 cars, and any one of them can go wrong, and they're going to throw challenges at me. And I've been given a challenge very recently by Beatrix yet again, and I've got to rise to it. And it might be easy for me to just say, do you know what, I'm going to take it to the garage and leave them to do it because I can't be bothered, or I don't want the hassle. But if you can do it, do it. I don't think there's anything specific that I can't do. The only thing I really can't do properly is tracking. I don't, those Gunson track right gauges, they're an absolute faff. They really are. Just take it to a garage, they'll put it on ramps and they'll adjust it. And half the time you can't adjust them because the lock nuts are seized to the track rod, so you can't adjust the tracking. You're gonna have to give that to them to do. I've had a case where garages refuse to do it because they're not insured to use the blowtorch. So tracking, wheel alignment, obviously. Those are the things that I have to have done. You know, changing tyres, you have to have that done because unless you've got space for a bloody wheel machine and a wheel balancer, it's not really feasible, is it? It's never going to pay you back. So, not really. I do need a press. I do need a hydraulic press. That would kind of help. I'm going to look to get a hydraulic press at some point. So that will be my garage very soon to start doing a few bits and pieces. There are reports of 4-wheel drive vehicles going to 700. I wouldn't want to know at 700 from under 100 nearly. So that would basically write a lot. Would that be a case of people just giving up the cars because of that? £600 is an awful lot of money. And I think people might be scratching their heads looking at other options potentially. But is that the idea though? Is that the idea? To encourage people away from them and buy newer cars? Adam, if I had an older classic more than 40 years, I'd personally still get an MOT every year for the peace of mind. And that's what it's about. And I think that, Adam, is why most people still opt to do it. But the fact that you have an option is very worrying. I think it's actually just, I don't know what's worse. Extending the MOT for new cars by another year to 4 years or 40 years MOT exemption. I personally think either of them are as bad as each other because newer cars could be pretty bad. Some of the failures at 3 years old are just unbelievable. It's like people literally buy a new car, run it into the ground and sell it. The generic thing is selling a car at 3 years old when the warranty is up. My Focus was sold to the second owner at 3 years old because warranty. Whoever bought the car bought it outright, and that's what you did back in the day. When you buy a car outright, you wait till the warranty's up and you get another one, sell it and get another one. Obviously, people who just want the latest thing. It's interesting. I'll never know if the original owners of the Focus are still around or not. Probably are because they're not that older cars, unless it was a very older person who bought it. Yeah, interesting one that. Imagine the reaction if you recognise the registration. I mean, I don't know how keyed up people are into their cars and whether someone would recognise a registration from many years ago. Probably not. But if they saw a black Focus, they'd probably think, whoa, this is my old car. You imagine that walking in, going to the supermarket or whatever, and you come back and there's 2 people standing outside your car. It's like, this was my car 20 years ago. I bought it brand new. You'd be standing there. I'd be wanting information from them. I would literally be asking them, what did you use it for? I just want a picture of the car's past. You know what I mean? It's a shame that because of GDPR, none of that is doable now. You cannot. The days where you could actually go back and try and find an owner and just ask, do you mind asking like what you've done to the car? What did you have any work done to it? Anything interesting? Anything like that, so I can just put it in the history file for the car, really, I'm not out to get your money, but you know, it's not how it is with GDPR today. Land Cruiser gone up from 70 to 486 euros. That's quite a steep hill to get in. I mess with the electronics in my car all the time, but wouldn't touch the mechanical stuff. Oh, that's interesting, because most people would probably say the opposite to that. I'd prefer the mechanical stuff than the electronic. That's really interesting. Puma Guy, what tips would you give to thoroughly clean? Sorry. What tips would you give to thoroughly clean a cloth interior and bring it back to life? Gentle scrubbing with a brush and some good foam, whether it's, you can use carpet cleaner, you know, the foaming carpet cleaner, just any stuff that you can get in a supermarket. Just test in an inconspicuous area, spray it blimmin' everywhere. You need to vacuum the interior first, whether it's carpets or seats. Vacuum it all out, make sure everything's gone as much as possible, hairs and dust and dirt and whatever, and then spray it on liberally. Bucket of water, lots of foaming, like a foaming carpet shampoo, and just literally get your brush into the water and just, yeah, it's as simple as that, and let it air dry out. But you need to do it on a reasonably warm day, just gentle. It's as simple as that, and it will come up an absolute treat. You don't need any of them fancy car vacuums, you know, those sort of shampoo car vacuums that do carpets and all those spot cleaners. You don't need them. Elbow grease. You'll never. No. Paul, nice session too. You've got to go. I will catch you soon, Paul. I will be at the Motorist on a certain weekend in November. If you are going, I think it's the 19th, or might be the day before actually. There is a themed day, so I'll be at one of them. I think it's that weekend. Alex, I might be biased since I'm almost an electronic engineer. Fair enough then. What do you work? Who would you work for? Anyone in particular? Just an interesting question, that one. I think 1 hour and 7. I'm going to continue this for a bit longer if anybody wants to stay. But yeah, the love of classics. My passion for classics has always kind of been there, and I was looking for a Mini, then I bought a Rover P6 just because it was the right car at the right time. It was local, it was at the right price, and it was in stonking condition. And unlike many P6s I see today, I'm pretty confident if I saw that car tomorrow, and she's still somewhere, I don't know where she is. I think she's down the coast somewhere. Well, not too far down the coast. I think she's somewhere, but I can't remember where. And if I saw it tomorrow, I'd expect to see a solid car with a bit of scabbiness on the panels, because that's how solid she is. And I'm privileged to have had such a car. And you use that experience, all that experience of working on the car and getting dirty. It was the car that taught me how to use a spanner, how to use sockets, how to not use a 13mm on a 1/2 inch bolt. That's quite inappropriate, and I think we've all learned that lesson when things start slipping all over the place and rounding. So I learned a lot of things, and I applied that to the Mark 1 Focus. So the Mark 1 Focus has a lot to thank the Rover for, in some respects. The Mark 1 Focus was the car that used to ferry around and get the P6 parts from all over the country, and the experience now that I have from the P6 has now helped her to get to where she is. So each their own, really. Alex, I study electronic engineering and work in mobile repair. Very nice indeed. I tell you what, if you weren't based in Portugal, if you're based over here, I'll be sending them my work. There'll be plenty of work. A couple of circuit boards here and there. That is not my strong point. And my soldering skills, as I've proven time and time again, are very slapdash. My soldered joints, I prefer to crimp, to be fair, because I tend to put too much solder on, and then I'm thinking, well, that's going to cause resistance because there's so much solder on those wires. There's actually more solder than the wire. What car is next on the wish list? Maestro. Has to be a Maestro. Has to be. I can say that straight away. Have you ever lost a classic 10mm socket? Plenty of times, plenty of times. I've lost it a couple of times, but actually I've always found them again, strangely. The 10mm sockets are never too far away, and I never tend to lose them as such these days because they are either on a ratchet, pretty much attached to a ratchet all the time. I even collect old phones, Nokias in particular. Oh gosh, literally the ones where you could literally stir your Nokia in some tea and it would still come out and work, or drop it into the bath. Those are the days of phones when they actually lasted. Though I think that they're having a bit of a comeback, old phones, a little bit, just in a niche thing, nothing massive, because smartphones are the thing now. My phone's getting bigger and bigger. Every time I change my phone, I seem to think that, the new phone is just too big. And then after about 3 months, I look at the old phone and I go, was I really doing all my stuff on that tiny little phone? It's amazing how our perceptions change. My old phone was absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with it, just the battery gave in. But it was much more smaller than this one. And I look at that and think, God, I did all going on the internet and doing everything, my emails and everything on that phone. There has to be a point though, isn't it? Like with anything with technology. You should have a tea mug with your channel name printed on it. I do. I do. There you go. Lovely. Yeah, I had that made quite a while ago. So very nice. It was part of a promotional offer. I thought I'd have it done for myself. I wouldn't intend to ever make them into production because I think I've only sold about 25 channel stickers. I have a bunch of channel stickers, by the way, guys. And if you want one, just email me. I have a PayPal account that you just send the money to and I'll send it to your address. If you're in the UK, if you're not in the UK, that's a bit tricky. Because I haven't discovered a cost-effective way of sending you a sticker if you want one. But at the moment, it's just very niche. I'm not really bothered about merchandise too much. It's if people want to stick them on their cars, I stick them on all my cars. So, and Ruby's going to get the treatment soon. I'm starting to look at how I think the car's going to look in the long term. Yeah, I think some paintwork done professionally. I've made my mind up. I'm actually not touching parts of that car with paint. Not me. I think that car deserves better, so I'm going to get someone professional to look at it, and I have in mind my body man again. Classics. Always wanting paint and metal. While the iPhone had a touchscreen, the N95 had autofocus camera with... See, I'm not a geek. I wouldn't know what a Zeiss optic is, to be fair. Anyway, I'm going to leave this live stream here. The love of classic cars and why I got into classic cars. And it's a bug. Once you own one and you move it on, maybe take a break like I did for a few years, you want another one. And Ruby is a sort of step, not backwards, sort of towards my childhood, really. And I'm really pleased that I've had the opportunity of owning such a car. And I think she's going to be with me a bit longer than intended, but still. Perfect. Thank you very much for joining us, Puma Guy. I'm really pleased that you could join us. I don't know how regular these live streams are going to be, but it helps to fill a gap a little bit. If I've got an hour spare and to interact with people who can join me, I'm very appreciative of anybody who can join with me and share the knowledge. And I will probably do another live stream, probably moaning about electric cars because I need to do a little bit of research, but all the same, things are not going well though, are they? So as opposed to talking about classics, moving on to electric cars, maybe next time. We don't talk about SUVs, but I'm open to talking about EVs because they are part of the future, but they're not really that part of the massive picture at the moment. Anyway, thanks, Adam. Brilliant. Cheers, buddy. I will speak to you about that very soon. Yes, there are quite a few videos coming up and very good ones. Alex, you need to get a 190e. They're quite expensive over here. I wonder what sort of price they are over there. So anyway, good talking to you, and I'll bear that in mind. Hold that fort. You take care. See you soon, guys.